Imagine a scenario where global trade comes to a complete halt, where the enormous container ships that transport everything from microchips to oil are paralyzed by an invisible, silent threat. We are not talking about a fleet of destroyers or hypersonic missiles, but about rusty metal spheres floating beneath the surface, waiting for a single brush to unleash chaos. The United States Navy is, without a doubt, the most powerful naval force in history, with nuclear-powered aircraft carriers and undetectable submarines, but it has an Achilles heel that its enemies know perfectly: naval mines. There is a question that makes Pentagon analysts uncomfortable and fascinates geopolitics experts. Why does the most advanced Navy in the world seem so slow, almost inefficient when it comes to clearing minefields when it has the technology to do so? The answer is not a lack of technical capability, but a complex web of strategy, calculated risk, and a raw operational reality that defines who truly dominates the seas in the 21st century. Leave your like, subscribe, and share. Let's begin. To understand this dilemma, we must first demystify what mine warfare means in the modern era. Most people imagine mines as those spiked balls from World War II movies, but today they are highly sophisticated submerged computers. They can detect the acoustic signature of a specific ship, sense the water pressure when a metal mass passes overhead, or even be activated remotely. The United States possesses submarine drones, elite divers, and state-of-the-art sonar systems. But clearing an area is not like running a vacuum cleaner over a carpet. It is an agonizing, slow, and meticulous process that more closely resembles a surgeon operating in total darkness. Every contact detected by sonar must be classified. It could be a mine, but it could also be a rock, an old tire, or a shipwreck. Confirming and neutralizing each threat individually can take hours or even days. When an adversary sows hundreds of these traps in a strategic strait, a full clearance can stretch over months, a time frame that the pace of modern warfare simply does not allow. Another critical factor is the current state of the American minesweeping fleet, which many within Congress have labeled scrawny. For decades, Washington's focus was on large-scale power projection, building massive ships to fight on the open sea. Meanwhile, mine countermeasure capability was delegated to Avenger-class vessels, platforms made of wood and fiberglass designed not to trigger magnetic mines. The problem is that these ships are old and being retired from active service. Their theoretical replacement, the Literal Combat Ship, or LCS, has faced constant technical problems, and its mine-specific mission modules took years to become 100% operational. This generational gap has left the Navy in a vulnerable position where cutting-edge technology is still in the testing phase while the old warhorses fade away, forcing naval commanders to be extremely selective about where and when to intervene. The economic asymmetry is perhaps the strongest geopolitical argument. It is insultingly cheap and fast for a country like Iran or North Korea to saturate an area with basic mines using fast boats or civilian fishing vessels. A mine costing as little as $1,000 can knock out a $1 billion destroyer. For the United States, the operational cost of clearing that minefield is exponentially higher, not only in terms of money, but of human and material risk. Mine-hunting vessels must navigate directly into the danger zone, becoming easy targets for coastal artillery or drone swarm attacks while they are stationary performing neutralization tasks. In the calculus of war, the cost of removal far exceeds the cost of placement, and American strategists prefer not to play a game where the enemy holds such an overwhelming economic advantage unless it is strictly necessary for national survival. At the level of military doctrine, the United States Navy prioritizes what they call area superiority. Before dispatching vulnerable mine-clearing teams, Washington must ensure it has total control of the air and the surface. In a real conflict, clearing mines under enemy fire is a suicide mission. Therefore, until aircraft carriers and submarines have neutralized the adversary's coastal defenses, the mines will remain in the water. This creates a perception of inaction, but in reality it is a combat hierarchy. You do not send the cleaning crew into a building that is still under crossfire. This operational caution means that, in the early stages of a crisis in the Strait of Hormuz or the South China Sea, the Navy will likely opt for alternative routes or simply wait, allowing diplomatic pressure or strategic bombing to do its work first. There is also a component of psychological warfare and deception. Sometimes the Navy deliberately chooses not to fully clear a minefield. By creating narrow, safe corridors that only they know about, They force the enemy to guess which areas are passable. If they cleared the entire field immediately, they would reveal their access routes and allow the adversary to re-sow mines in the same locations more efficiently. Keeping the enemy uncertain about which areas are safe and which are not is a valuable tactical tool. Furthermore, mine clearance is often delegated to regional allies or NATO forces that have a historical specialization in this field, allowing American forces to concentrate on high-level attack and defense tasks. It is a division of labor where the United States provides the muscle and others provide the patience. In the current context, the strategy has evolved toward creating transit corridors for commercial shipping rather than the total clearance of oceans. The Navy uses a combination of specialized divers and trained marine mammals, along with drones that can operate without putting human lives at risk, but the scale of the challenge remains massive. The reality is that mines are the weapon of the weak against the strong, and American power, however advanced, runs into a wall of physics and time every time it faces these devices. The geopolitics of the seas teaches us that the one with the biggest weapon does not always win, but rather the one who knows how to manage risk in an environment where the danger is invisible, and time is the scarcest resource of all. At the end of the day, the Navy does not clear all the mines, not because it cannot, but because the cost of doing so could be higher than the benefit of winning the war. Leave your like, subscribe, and share. The technology is changing, but the physics of murky waters and irregular seabeds remains the same. Side-scan sonars and remotely operated vehicles have improved detection rates, but classification remains the great bottleneck. Imagine trying to identify a specific coin at the bottom of a mud-filled pool while someone shoots at you from the edge. That is the reality of mine clearance in shallow water. Sediments, currents, and salinity affect the accuracy of the Pentagon's most expensive instruments. This is why, despite the rhetoric about technological superiority, the reality on the ground, or rather, beneath the water, is that mine warfare remains a craft-based, dangerous, and frustrating endeavor that defies the logic of the immediate response that the public usually expects from a superpower. Furthermore, one must consider the factor of operational fatigue. Maintaining a constant presence in mined areas exhausts human and material resources disproportionately. Explosive Ordnance Disposal Teams, or EOD, are elite units with an extremely costly and lengthy training process. Risking them on routine clearance tasks in areas that are not critical to immediate security is a luxury the Navy does not easily afford. Every decision to enter a minefield goes through a cost-benefit analysis at the highest levels of command. If the objective can be achieved by going around the area or using aerial assets, mine clearance is postponed indefinitely, leaving the problem to be resolved by the passage of time or post-conflict agreements where risk diminishes considerably. Logistics also plays a determining role that is rarely mentioned in headlines. Transporting heavy mine-clearing equipment across the globe requires a protected and efficient supply chain. While a missile can be fired from thousands of kilometers away, mine clearance requires prolonged physical presence. This means the Navy must establish temporary bases or maintain logistical support ships nearby, which increases the military footprint and vulnerability to asymmetric attacks. In a world where geopolitical tensions shift rapidly from Eastern Europe to the Indo-Pacific, committing massive resources to clearing a secondary area makes no strategic sense when those same resources could be needed for greater deterrence on another front. Finally, there is the legal and diplomatic dimension. On many occasions, mines are found in disputed territorial waters or in the exclusive economic zones of third-party countries. Entering to clear these mines without a formal invitation or an international mandate can be seen as a violation of sovereignty or an act of aggression. The United States Navy is often slowed down by the need to navigate these diplomatic waters before it can navigate the physical ones. The caution is not only about the explosions, but about the political repercussions of operating in another nation's backyard. It is preferable to wait for international pressure to force the party responsible for laying the mines to withdraw them, or for a multinational coalition to form that distributes the responsibility and risk of clearance. In summary, the apparent inaction of the United States Navy in the face of naval mines is a masterclass in geopolitical realism. It is not a display of weakness, but a deep understanding of the limitations of military power against asymmetric and persistent threats. Mine warfare is dirty, slow, and unglamorous, the opposite of the lightning war image projected by cinema. As long as the world continues to depend on maritime straits for its economic survival, Mines will remain the nightmare of admirals and the favorite tool of maritime insurgents. The next time you hear that a channel has been blocked by mines and you wonder why American aircraft carriers have not solved the problem within hours, remember that at sea, the silence of a mine is more powerful than the roar of a jet engine, and that patience is usually the best weapon available to Washington. Leave your like, subscribe, and share. Until next time.